Good morning, Jared.
How are you?
Doing all right.
Yeah?
Got my cup of Joe.
Yeah. I think you will be probably like everybody else doesn't actually want to drink coffee, but we can confirm that we both have coffee.
Well, I have coffee, but my hot sports opinion on this is that I don't actually like black coffee. I just feel like it makes me an adult, so I drink it.
Interesting.
So I've forced myself to like black coffee. But my wife really, really loves coffee. So much that she drinks it before she goes to bed, and it helps her go to sleep.
Yikes.
Yep.
It's probably not good.
Yeah. Well, she gets by, so
Um,
she makes it.
I'm an adult, and I very rarely drink coffee black, but I drink coffee every single day.
It's true. You do drink a lot of coffee. And sometimes the day is just too hard for me to force black coffee down myself.
Yeah.
So I put a little creamer, sprinkle a little creamer in there.
Coffee. Coffee is a good thing. It's a good gift from the Lord.
Amen.
Do you know what else is a good gift from the Lord?
Family.
Families. Just like that.
Families are great gifts.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a family.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. They go to this church.
They go to this church.
Actually. Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact about that. So yeah, I thought we could chat for a couple of seconds about family in a couple of ways. One, its effect on us as a person, and then two, maybe like looking ahead, like just kind of that idea, like family formation, like all of us have a say in how our families operate, and so like what do we want to instill in our own families, probably based off our experience and also just kind of some ideals we have. So Mark, tell me about your family.
Man, I think I have a great family, and
That's good because they might watch this.
yeah, that's what I have to be thinking about right now is what they're going to tell me afterwards. I grew up with parents who went to this church, and so growing up going to Park Springs, and I just think they did a really good job in the ability to show me like what my faith looked like, what Christianity looked like, but not force feeding it in a sense where it was like, this is going to be what you believe, whether you like it or not.
So more shown versus like, more like a do what I do, not a do what I say.
Right. And that also, some people would say like, well, you don't actually care very much for your kids if you're not like really making them follow the one true God, which makes sense. I kind of can empathize with that. But also, having been around kids for 3 years in some role, we don't like being force-fed things. When we're younger, I myself have had angsty moments in my life, believe it or not.
I think everybody's had angsty
My
moments.
parents used to go, angsty Mark, angsty Mark.
Which I'm sure helped calm your
That did not make
your
me
tude back
any
down.
less angsty. But in thinking about the just mindset of what kids are and how we go about things and how we are angsty, being force-fed things are sometimes not the right avenue. And I think they did that well in setting me up for success, because that's kind of all you can do when I think about just what I know in my life. Granted, I don't have kids, and I haven't done it myself. I know you're working on raising
I have a small person in my home.
a wonderful young lady yourself.
So you got the faith aspect, like you brought up in the Christian home. What would you say though, like as your family, like if you think like maybe like distinctives, like what's uniquely Johnson, like what would you say have been some hallmarks, not just faith, but just in general, like what's been unique about your immediate family, parents, siblings, like what do y'all do as a family?
Well, I think we're very goofy.
I can affirm that, knowing your parents.
And using Laura as a just an experience whenever I was kind of nervous about how I was going to bring innocent Laura that I love, whom I want to show the greatest parts of the world to, bring her into my family, who's a little on the sarcastic, funny side, which is a great thing that I love on its own, but just the mix of them together, I was a little nervous about. And so they were very much sarcastic and very much goofy, but also very welcoming, if that can be understood. Sometimes that's a hard mix. But Laura felt loved. Laura felt like she was right in the mix, even with all the goofiness and kind of the, oh my gosh, did he just say that? Or did Will just do that? Did my little brother just do that? So they're goofy, but they're also compassionate, which is a hard mix, and something they have drilled into me, something they've drilled into my older brother and my younger brother. Just knowing that we've never gotten into too much crazy trouble, but we also have a side of us that wants to enjoy life, that wants to do some crazy stuff every once in a while that isn't just
crazy, like more on the adventure side.
Yeah, more on the
like on the
right, not just being
side.
being okay with just staying at home was not really what we were pushed to. We still went on vacations where we wanted to climb mountains, wanted to go seek adventure and whatnot, and enjoy just playing soccer growing up.
It's a big world out there.
Yep, there's a lot of cool stuff to do.
Yeah, which I think that's one of the unique things, and I think the Bible kind of talks about it. It says that each family, like God has named each family, which I kind of think that like there are these distinctions to. I mean, you can think big picture, like extended family, but also I think each individual household, and that was, I think, something I saw in my family, and even now, like as I reflect on, like, what does it mean to be a Jackson? There's both the positives and the negatives, which I would say usually from the outside looking in, because you've met a lot of my family, is we're loud. Which I didn't realize how loud till I got married and saw how quiet my wife's family was.
Yeah.
And it's not even like just an amount of talk. It's just the overall volume, which a lot of people here know me. I'm on the more subdued side of my family, if you can believe it.
And so that's a new thing for me, is seeing my wife
family,
and comparing it to your own family. And that's just kind of funny.
But family is so formative, as I think about, definitely as I moved into adulthood and then got married, and now even more so as I'm moving into parenthood, thinking about how my parents led our home and starting to make those decisions on this we're going to reinforce and this we don't really want as a part of our family dynamic. It is so formative, which can be difficult because we're both saying we had both of our parents, and we would have a very positive view of our upbringing.
Right.
And not everybody has that.
For sure.
For some, there's more negatives. So I think about my dad a lot because he didn't grow up in a Christian home. So he didn't have those formative young years around the Bible, around faith. And so he really came into it as an adult. And so then just thinking about how he had to make that transition from, he couldn't just take everything from his parents and apply it to his life. He had to kind of make some decisions. So going forward, this is what I want my home to be like. And so I know for us, we were a pretty adventurous bunch, did a lot of athletics and stuff, but I know my dad was never going to force us to do anything. So I remember even like some of the years when high school sports were tough, it wasn't like, hey, you just need to be tough. He was like, hey, if this isn't what you want to do, you do not have to do this. And so I can see how he kind of made those choices more of a, I didn't get this, and so I want this for my kids, which I think is probably where a lot of people find themselves, that maybe they didn't have that godly, life-giving experience. So maybe they're along the lines of more like, I want to provide for my family what I didn't get growing up.
Yep.
So as you think about long-term, your family, forming a family unit, both on like the spiritual side and just like the living side, like what are some, like, have you and Laura had those talks like, hey, what do we want our team, our specific family unit, our household, what do we want as a part of that?
I wouldn't say we've gone too in-depth on the kid conversation yet.
Really, with as long as you've been married?
Yeah, with the 3 weeks we've been married, believe it or not. We have talked about the wanting to have kids, and there's the conversation of maybe adopting at some point, just for the sake of kind of the metaphor that serves to what Jesus is and what we mean to be in the family of God. And just having that to raise a child with seems like an incredible gift just for our family. Outside of that, tactics on how to raise kids isn't like a conversation we've really had.
You want to defeat your...
Right. But I would assume every parent wants to have their child raised to enjoy life and to also not get into too much trouble, to be a straight arrow, to be only good, never do anything bad, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And I think through these things, and I'm not an expert, like I'll just go ahead and say, but as I look through and kind of think through all the experiences I've had with other families, with friends growing up, like kids are going to make mistakes, and you almost need to be acting in a way to set up kids for success. So in high school, when decisions come, when a breaking point comes where they have to choose what they know is right versus what they know is wrong, that they've been set up to make the right decision.
Yeah.
And I think many times in high school I could have had the decisions go the other way, where I could have done something that would have wrecked me or just set myself up for worse things going forward. But in my heart, I had conviction to choose the thing I knew was right, because I think my parents gave me what I needed to know to make that decision.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think the Bible, you see it in the Bible, it kind of talks about like legacies of faith, which even Old Testament, it always lists who's the dad. But then even in the New Testament, Paul, talks about Timothy, like, hey, I saw it in your mother and grandmother, I see it in you. So you do see there's this very strong connection to family. And so I that's something I think about is, the legacy of my family, because I think that's something God's given us to think about and to implement. And definitely now as like, I think about it more having a child, but even as a young married couple, you start figuring out how you're going to do things as a unit. So like holidays, birthdays, any of those big moments, you start kind of, I would say, developing like a flavor as a family. And so I think about that even more going forward, like what do I want to be markers for my children and just our family in general. And I definitely want to raise my children in the faith, but also, like I hope our household's fun. I hope that my kids, like that my house is like where all my kids' friends want to come over. Because that was something my parents did too. I have friends from high school that still talk to my dad more than me because he cared about them that way.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and so I want it to be fun. I do want it to be adventurous, because I think courage, we probably don't talk about enough, but I think I've found myself praying that for my daughter, maybe more than anything else at this point. I don't want her to be a fearful person. I want her to be a courageous person.
Maybe not like a daredevil.
Yeah, I don't think that's, I didn't say reckless.
Right.
Yeah, courage, because life's full of trials. And so, I think fun and courageous and, hopefully honest, thinking about, how do I bring that in where there is this openness about, when we make, not if we make mistakes, but when we make mistakes, which I think will have to be modeled by me and Emily first.
Right.
In learning to apologize openly in our family. But I think about, definitely from my upbringing, my family, and also what I want, is there something like really life-giving about a family that likes each other? And I do like our house growing up. I mean, we would have the big parties, not in like the drinking sense, but like we would have big bonfires and all the youth group or all the school friends. Like my parents knew every single one of my friends and cared about them and asked about their life. And there was something like people wanted to be at our house. And so that, I guess, hospitality is one of the things you think about. So those are some of the legacy I want to continue with my family and hopefully build upon, because God did that and provided that for me as a kid.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk on the point that we both had parents who really invested in us.
Yeah.
And so if I'm thinking of trying to empathize with people who don't have that, you kind of think through, how do I start that? Or how do I begin a trend that will set my generations, even future generations, up for success? Because it's still, even though I was raised by two awesome parents who loved me, and I had two brothers who loved me, and I love them fully. I think so. I think I love them fully.
Depending on the day.
Depending on the day. I could still choose to set my household up for disaster. And the devil is trying to tempt me to not be a godly man to my future kids, to Laura. And it does take my effort still to set them on a right path. And I think everybody has that option.
Yeah. Which I think for, in a lot of our conversations that we've had and just talking about like, so how do you do that? I think, the simplest way is that it just takes intentionality. Like that you can't just like hope you end up with a good family dynamic without, having conversations, seeking advice, being intentional. So if like you want a fun family household, it's probably not going to like plan fun,
Yeah.
like make sure that's a part of like your family time is, it's not just going to be corrective. It's not just going to be like do your chores, but like plan fun. So if you want, a courageous household, I think like I'm not going to, well, I think we're, doing adventure and, in encouraging those good, like all of it's going to take intentionality. You can't just kind of hope that your family dynamic ends somewhere positive, like without you, seeking your spouse, pressing into the Lord, and I'll reiterate, seeking advice. Like if there are other families, other households, older people, even younger people that like, hey, like when I see their family, it encourages me. I mean, go ask people what they do. Like,
Yeah.
try to, if you didn't have those parental figures that you're really learning from, I mean, that's why the church is awesome, is because we acquire a spiritual family that we can learn from and take from them and implement into our lives as well.
It's a source of nourishment that's right there for us. It's almost like God planned that to be the case.
Nah, I think it's coincidence. Yeah, well, families,
Families.
can't live with them.
Gotta love them. Gotta dislike them sometimes, but
Yeah.
they're there regardless.
Shout out to your mom.
Hey, Mom.
I'll say hi to my mom too.
Hey, Kathy. Love you.
She is a nice lady.
I'd like to give all my thanks to the Academy for getting me to this point.
Do you know what time it is?
Foursquare time?
Probably. Until next week.
Until next week. Signing off. I'm Mark. I thought you were going to say I'm Jared, but
I bet you thought I was going to say that.